going to be talking about one of my favorite films, huge cult classic, the 1981 American supernatural horror film, The Evil Dead. What can I say about this movie that hasn't already been said? It's fantastic. Written and directed by Sam Raimi, executive produced by Raimi and Bruce Campbell. The film focuses on 5 college students vacationing in an isolated cabin in a remote wooded area. After they find an audio tape that releases a legion of demons and spirits, members of the group suffer from demonic possession, leading to increasingly gory mayhem. Sam Raimi didn't have enough money to do this film. He actually needed a little over $100,000. And so what he did was he produced a short film called Within the Woods as a prototype to build the interest of potential investors. And he secured $90,000 to produce this movie with the help of family and friends. The film was shot on location in a remote cabin located in Morristown, Tennessee, and proved difficult for the cast and crew. It was extremely uncomfortable. I can only imagine. But the low-budget horror film attracted the interest of producer Irvin Shapiro, as well as Stephen King, who actually helped convince New Line Cinema to serve as its distributor. It was a commercial success, developed a reputation as one of the largest cult films, and has been cited among the greatest horror films of all time. You got the sequel Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, television series, comic books, games, and a remake. And a lot of people put down the remake. I don't know why. I actually like the remake. A lot of people, they always say like, oh, well, Bruce Campbell's not really in it. Actually, he is. He's in a little cameo part. But that was fine. They didn't completely copy. I like the remake for what it was. But anyway, the cast, Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams, Ellen Sandweiss as Cheryl Williams, I think I'm saying that right. Hal Derrick as Scott, Betsy Baker as Linda, Sarah York as Shelley. And like I said, the story basically revolves around 5 Michigan State students. You have Ash and his girlfriend Linda, Ash's sister Cheryl, their friend Scott, and his girlfriend Shelley. They venture into rural Tennessee to vacation in an isolated cabin. Like I said, they soon run into trouble. Scott nearly colliding with a truck. They get to the cabin, and that night Cheryl is sketching an old clock. She notices it stopping. She hears a demonic voice outside her window that says, "Join us," and she shrugs it off. Her hand becomes possessed, causing her to draw a picture that looks like a book with a deformed evil face. She's not really sure what to do, so she decides not to mention it to the others. Then the famous trap door to the cellar opens during dinner. Ash and Scott go down to investigate and find the Book of the Dead, along with a tape recorder belonging to the archaeologist who owned it before. Scott plays it, and the archaeologist's voice recites the you-know-what, resurrecting a mysterious, demonic entity. Then all hell breaks loose. There's some great gore, great scenes, stuff you will never forget. Like when Shelley becomes possessed, forcing Scott to chop up her body with an axe and bury the remains. There's some great stuff. Evil Dead is one of those movies that you never forget. Really. I mean, that's why everyone talks about it. But anyway, great cast, great story, a lot of fun. The movie's fun. It really is. But the movie Within the Woods, the short film that Raimi created, he produced that for $1,600. So, at first, Raimi turned to his lawyer. Well, actually, it was one of his friends. It was a lawyer to one of his friends, I think. But he showed him Within the Woods. And his name was Phil Gillis. He was not impressed at all by the short film. And he offered Raimi legal advice on how to produce Evil Dead. And so, Raimi was taking donations. Like I said, his family members, his friends were helping out. And then eventually he raised enough money. And it wasn't the full amount that he wanted. Like I said, it was only about $90,000. And the title was actually going to be called Book of the Dead, but people found that boring, so they switched it to Evil Dead, The Evil Dead. But yeah, Book of the Dead, referencing the actual Book of the Dead that they find. But, it was inspired by Raimi's interest in the fiction of H.P. Lovecraft. And the film was actually supposed to be a remake of Within the Woods, with a higher production value, with a full-length running time. It was Raimi's rite of passage, man. Like it was something that he, it was something that he had an idea about, and he went through with it, no matter what the cost. No matter if he didn't have hardly any money, he still went for it. I mean, what better way to ask, assistance from your friends and family? That way you can keep things kind of the way you want. Bruce Campbell is amazing in this film. He's amazing in anything he does, really. But it was an extensive filming process. It was crazy. Like I said, the cast and the crew, it was difficult for them to film on location because all the stuff that was going on and all stuff they needed to do. But there was a large promotional campaign for this. It performed above expectations at the box office. And I guess it had an impressive European performance as well. But it was met with controversy. He made the film as gruesome as possible, with neither interest in nor fear of censorship, pretty much. I mean, with movies like that, they go for like an X rating, which it actually did. It led to receiving an X rating. And they called it a video nasty or whatever. And when you're X-rated, I mean, usually they kind of categorize it as pornographic, which it wasn't. It was not pornographic at all. It was considered one of the most violent films of the time. And it did impact some of its commercial potential, so to say. It was called just like a nasty film, and they described it as one of the most notorious splatter films of its day, along with Cannibal Holocaust and I Spit on Your Grave. I mean, I would not compare this to Cannibal Holocaust. Cannibal Holocaust is what you would call, that movie could have an X rating. I mean, really. I Spit on Your Grave, I'd say is pretty close. But the film is actually still banned theatrically and on video in some countries. But the critical opinion upon release was positive. Very, very positive. Well made. A low budget gore and shock effect. Powerful. inventive camera work. You know, a lot of people had different things to say, but they were mostly positive, which was great. But like I said, it developed a cult following. One of the largest cult film trilogies, actually, in history. You know, before the actual remake, of course. But this film launched the careers of Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. You know, Raimi went on to do the Spider-Man films. And, you know, he returned to do Drag Me to Hell, which I really like. Drag Me to Hell is one of those films that, you know, there's some bad CGI and stupid moments, but I really like that movie. I don't know. It kind of bothered me in some parts with that old lady. But Campbell's performance as Ash has been compared to roles ranging from his performance of Elvis Presley in the film Bubba Hotep, a demon in X-Files episode of Terms of Endearment. But usually everybody talks about him in Evil Dead 2 as well, about his great performance in Evil Dead 2. But anyway, guys, this movie is a classic one, and there's, you know, everybody knows about this movie. You know, whether you know, if you're a Friday the 13th fan, Halloween fan, Nightmare on Elm Street fan, whatever, this is one of those top movies, top horror movies that it just makes, you know, you just stop and just listen. Okay, Evil Dead. Well, of course I've seen. I've heard about it. Of course, you know. But here's some special features. This is just a plain Blu-ray here. But yeah, I love this movie. If I had to rate The Evil Dead, I would probably give this movie a 9 out of 10 for sure. When it comes to the sequels, I don't know. Like, I love the first Evil Dead. Evil Dead 2 was more of like I want to say like a comedy in some cases. I mean, they're all different. You know, Army of Darkness is back in time, in another time period, and so they're all different in ways. So it's hard to kind of like rank them. I probably will have a video where I rank them maybe worst to best. That's going to be hard though, because I just like all three of them, and I'm not including the remake here. I'm talking about just the, you know, the original 3 movies. I like all 3, but this is the one that started it all, right here, Evil Dead. So, let me know what you think in the comments of The Evil Dead. Is it one of your favorite horror films? What would be your ranking? I'll just mention it right now if you want to talk about it in the comments. What would be your ranking of the Evil Dead films? And if you want to include the remake, that's fine. But, yeah, guys, Evil Dead is definitely a movie to watch in the month of October for sure. So that's why I'm doing it.